quarterfinal action across the state of Iowa. High school football, it is the best time of the year. It is state playoff football. We got the Dome, the semifinals next week, and we're going to figure out who's going to be representing each class. My name is Caden Nissen. I'm joined, per usual, by Nick Fox. We got a show for you guys this week. We're going to be talking anything and everything quarterfinal action across all 7 classes. We got our usual buy or sell segment, and then we'll hop right into our locks and dogs. We had an interesting week last week, so be sure to stay tuned and see how we do this week. But without further ado, Nick, let's start with buy or sell. I got an interesting one for you. In 5A, do you think a non-CIML team makes the Unidome?
This week, I am selling that because I think that the matchups this week are there. I think it's just overpowered. I think the Southeast Polk, we'll talk about this a little later with the locks and dogs, but I think Southeast Polk definitely has a pretty good chance to win here over Cedar Falls. And the upset, Bettendorf and Ankeny Centennial. I was there for that Ankeny Centennial game, and their ground attack is unbelievable. They were phenomenal. They were running all over Waukee Northwest, and I thought Centennial's defense was also a big story. They were getting in the backfield all night. I can't say for sure how many sacks they had that night, but it feels like they probably had just short of a handful. And so I think their defense brings so much pressure. I think they have a great backfield, and they have Trenton Smith, of course, who has an elite arm. So I think that all CIML teams will be in the Dome for Class 5A this year.
Yeah, that's interesting. And really, Bettendorf is the one shot. They also play really good defense. They're known for that. We've talked about them all year. They probably are one of the better 5A teams out east. You know, they are probably one of the better shots. You had Kennedy. I think Cedar Falls is a quality team. You just don't like that matchup against Southeast Polk. Just kind of they're just a buzzsaw at this point. But no, Bettendorf, I think, has a shot. I picked Ankeny Centennial, no doubt, as my Cinderella just because I like them as a 13 seed. I thought that was great value. Even though they won at Waukee Northwest, I don't know if I'd call that a huge upset. But I tell you what, Charlie Zimmerman is having a great year for Bettendorf. They got a good rushing attack. They've got a good defense. That's going to be a really fun game. I know BC Moore, I looked there. They had Ankeny Centennial as pretty heavy favorites in that one. But they're going on the road. They're going to Bettendorf. Bettendorf coming off a bounce-back win against City High. So they're going to be a tough out. But if a non-CIML team is going to represent Class 5A, it is no doubt probably going to have to be Bettendorf.
Yeah, I agree with you there. Absolutely. All right, so we'll move along here. Buy or sell, 3 number 1 teams are on the road this week. Underwood, Madrid, and Winfield Mount Union. Are you taking all 3 of them to get a victory this week?
I'm buying it. I think it's interesting. We got 3 IA football number 1 teams on the road, just how it's worked with district play. And I know a few of them have come down to that alphabetical tiebreaker that a lot of people are talking about. But no, I like all 3 of those teams to go on the road, pick up a win. Underwood at OABCIG is a real favorite pick of mine. I'm pretty sure that's a lock in my picks, if I remember correctly. Winfield Mount Union at Don Bosco will be tough, and Madrid they get a undefeated challenge with ACGC. So they're all gonna be good games. But no, I like how our IA football rankers have ranked. I think they've got those teams right in terms of number 1. So I am going to buy that all 3 teams go on the road and pick up a win as the number 1 team. Switching to a Class 3A question, Nick, kind of your expertise area. Creston, Solon, and Williamsburg are kind of the IA football top 3, kind of going off our rankings, and they're still playing ball. Buy or sell all of those teams reaching the Dome as the top 3?
This is really tricky.
Yeah, I meant to trick you. I wanted to try and stump you here.
No, I get it. I think Creston and Solon both have the best chance to make it. Williamsburg is going to be a tough call because I think Mount Vernon, they're going to bring the heat this game. I think me and Cade talked about it. I plan on going to this game at Williamsburg and Mount Vernon.
That's a Dome caliber game.
That's what I'm saying.
Isn't Mount Vernon number 4 in our ranking? I'm pretty sure this if you're looking at the rankings, this is a Dome. This is a semifinal preview in all senses. So no, both these teams, we always talk about that. You don't like seeing teams that deserve to be in the Dome end up short. Right. This is one of those games where you're going to see a team that deserves to be in the Dome not make it, because both those teams are Dome caliber teams. And in Williamsburg on Friday night. That is a dome caliber matchup. So what are you thinking? You buying or you selling?
I think I'm gonna buy this.
Okay.
I think that Williamsburg, they've been a really dominant team this year. I think the biggest question mark is gonna be if Derek Weisskopf can take care of business because, I'm not, trying to be that guy. He has not played up to the level yet of what Kellen Cockrell was playing.
Yeah, you can tell he's an athlete at quarterback, and he's still learning the system. And
absolutely,
they've got a ton of studs around him that they're going to rely on with Weegan and all those guys. So it's really interesting. That's a really intriguing matchup over there in Williamsburg, and I know you're probably going to be there, like you said. So it's going to be fun to see that one with your own two eyes.
Yeah. So I'll be looking for Weisskopf. I think he can play and make a difference in this one. So, all right, we'll finish up the buy-sell segment here, Cade. 2 rematches in Class 4A with Western Dubuque, North Scott, and ADM Lewis Central. Buy or sell one of these games flipping from the regular season?
I think I'm going to buy this one. Western Dubuque, for those who aren't aware, Western Dubuque took the regular season contest against North Scott. That kind of solidified themselves as the #1 team. They haven't let go of it since. And then obviously ADM Lewis Central way back. Lewis Central won that one at ADM in a really good game. Both those games were 1 score. And I'm going to buy it. And I really like North Scott's position with Girardi. I think he's a stud. I think Western Dubuque is an incredible team. It's just, like we've talked about it in the playoffs, it's really hard to be a good team twice. And I'm kind of buying that one of these teams is going to avenge a regular season loss and figure out what they need to do. ADM is another a potential candidate to win that game, no doubt. With Flora, you got a shot, but Lewis Central, I think, is one of the more complete teams in 4A. If you look at what they bring to the table with Hetzel and Camden Cross and Curtis Whitty, obviously they're just studs all around. So I'm going to buy this, and I think if it's going to happen, I think it's going to be North Scott. But speaking of picks, we're not going to waste any time. We're going to get right into our picks with our locks and dogs, probably what you guys are here for. Looking back at last week, Nick had a rough week. The comments on Instagram got on him. Just 7 for 14 last week. I think you missed 3 locks, which I think is I think that's what hurt you. That might be a record. That might be tough to beat again. The comments were pretty ruthless. I kind of felt bad for you. Nick is hitting at a 65% clip at this point in the year. I had another good week last week, 9 for 14. I hit Ankeny Centennial and ADM as my underdogs. I'm now hitting at a 67% clip. So I've got 56 of 84, and Nick has gotten 55 of 84. So razor sharp, thin margins here. Nick, what do you got for 5A to try and separate yourself?
I've got my lock this week. It has to be Southeast Polk. If you do pay attention and care about the BC Moore stats, Southeast Polk has a 97% probability of winning this game. They're supposed to be favored by 23 points. Southeast Polk, we've talked about them all year. This has been such a dominant team. They're absolutely, looking for that three-peat. I think that they have a really good chance to do it. I thought that Dowling win was really impressive, but Cedar Falls is getting hot at the right time. They took that loss a couple weeks ago to Kennedy, 3-point loss, and they ended up coming back a couple weeks later and getting the win.
Yeah,
but I think that Southeast Polk Moberly, I think I saw on Twitter that Carson Robbins just committed to Iowa State.
Yep.
So the Cyclone duo, I think that they're going to take care of business here and bring down Cedar Falls. And my underdog this week is Valley, going out to Hawkeyes. I think that they're going to take care of business. This is the second year that we've watched Valley. They're on the cusp of getting eliminated from the playoffs.
And rising from the dead.
They get the last-minute win the last week. They get the win to sneak in the playoffs. They go to Pleasant Valley, one of the top teams in Class 5A, and they beat them 31-21 on the road, which is a long road trip to Pleasant Valley. Hawkeyes they've got a great team. Beckett Baker, he's had 1,300 yards through the air, 500 on the ground. I went to watch that game against Johnston. They have a fantastic run game. They have a great defense. But if history repeats itself, Valley will be making the Dome this year.
I like it. A few things off yours. I think it's interesting going to see Cedar Falls get out of the Dome. They've in the cold last week.
Yeah.
Everyone else had to deal with it. They
Right.
they get to play in the dome, so now they get to go into the elements and try and prove themselves. I think that's an interesting part. And Valley Waukee, I think that's where I'm going to be. Haven't announced it yet. Always having Waukee people on me to show up, so I wasn't there last week, so I might as well show up this week. So I like that pick there. History has shown Valley as a underdog in the playoffs is just like really tough to beat. So
Yeah.
I like those picks. I'm going to kind of piggyback off you on my lock. I'm going to go with the number 2 team, my lock, Dowling over Ankeny. I had a ton of fun watching Ankeny last week. Luke Anderson, Hawkeyes had a good game. Akers, Connor Kaiser, they're all studs. Dowling just, like we said, they're just a buzzsaw. Them in Southeast Polk, it's hard to pick against those teams right now, and not many games, so we're kind of limited in who we got to pick. Right. So decisions are a lot tougher. And my upset, I'm sticking with them, the Jags over Bettendorf. Call it an upset. I don't really care. They're on the road. I'm going to count it as an upset seed-wise. They're favored in that game, but I'm going to go with the Jags and ride the hot hand. And I did pick them as my Cinderella last week when we did that little segment. So I'm going to keep it going, and I'm going to ride them. You talked about them earlier. Good on both sides of the ball. They've hung tight with some of the best teams. 5-4 record isn't all that glamorous, but I like what they bring to the table.
Yeah, so we'll go ahead and move on to Class 4A here. My lock for this week is Lewis Central over ADM. I went and watched ADM a couple weeks ago. I thought their run game was good. I thought North Polk shut it down pretty well, but their pass game is pretty impressive. Aiden Flora is a very impressive athlete to watch. If you're looking for a game to go to, this would be a great one, a huge rematch. Lewis Central, just another one of those teams, man. They pump out these big 8-win, 9-win seasons just about every year, every other year, and they're right back in it yet again. But ADM is not going to be an easy win. But I think Lewis Central can take care of business. And my underdog this week, another one of those games on the road. You don't really you don't know if it's really an underdog pick, but Xavier is heading to North Polk, and I think Xavier runs away with a win. Ronan Thomas, the quarterback out there, he has been phenomenal this season. I went, like I just mentioned, watched North Polk, and I thought they were a really great team. I thought all around a really well put together team, but so is Xavier. I think experience and consistency is going to be their biggest helping hand, and I think that they're going to punch their ticket to the Dome yet again.
I like it. Yeah, you saw North Polk with their big win over ADM, so you saw them at their highest, and you're still taking Xavier. Xavier obviously escaping by the skin of their teeth last week. That was incredible. That was kind of a surprising score.
Yeah.
Speaking of a surprising score, my lock, Bondurant, I talked about them in our little preview show. I just shout out to them. They've just been incredible ever since their big injury losses. A guy that we haven't talked about all year, but we need to, Caleb Moore. He went off last week. He's picking up the slack. They still got Jordan Ryle, who's one of the best quarterbacks in Class 4A. I'm kind of upset that we kind of overlooked them after losing their 2 studs. This team is still really, really good without their star players that they lost. So I'm going with my lock, Bondurant over Glenwood. Road game lock, kind of risky.
Yeah.
I don't know. I feel like it's kind of a team of destiny in Bondurant. I feel like they're going to get it done, and really just a gut feeling right there. Another gut feeling tying into our buy or sell. I'm going with North Scott to get to avenge a regular season loss to Western Dubuque. Really, this is 2 good teams. I don't like picking against Gloucester and Western Dubuque. He's having a great year. I'm more picking North Scott just because I think they're going to avenge that loss from earlier in the year. Tough to beat a good team twice, and I think North Scott is going to figure out a recipe and pull this one out on the road.
Yeah, absolutely. I think those are pretty good picks. I like Bondurant. I completely agree with you. I think it's pretty awesome that they've been able to overcome the adversity, losing a couple of fantastic players. But
4A's tough. There's a lot of good games in 4A. Those locks and dogs, they're razor thin. You could argue whether it's a lock and a dog because it's just a stacked class.
Completely agree with you. All right, let's move on to Class 3A. My lock this week is the Solon Spartans. I think this is the second week I have them as a lock in a row. Solon Spartans over West Delaware. If you watch the Class 3A rankings video, I agree with what you said about we really overlooked West Delaware. We kind of I know I personally saw them losing to Assumption, but they completely proved us wrong. Almost putting up 60 points against Assumption, a 58-45 win. But I think Solon is just a different beast that they're dealing with this week.
Yeah.
They're coming off a 50-7 victory over Fort Madison. And I think Solon's defense is going to take them a long way, along with their offense, who has been so good over the last 8 or so weeks. And so, yeah, give me Solon to get a huge win and punch their ticket to the Dome. This one is a really interesting matchup. I think this is probably one of the more even matchups in the state, which is I'm taking Bishop Heelan to get a win over Sioux Center. And this is one of those games that there was the rematch from earlier this year. Sioux Center took the win over Bishop Heelan 21-0, shutting them out. I think this is a different Heelan team. I think they've looked really good since that game. And, we just mentioned Quinn Olson. We've talked about him a little bit before. He's had a fantastic year, 1,800 total yards. He has been sensational. Give me Bishop Heelan to get a huge win and find themselves performing in Cedar Falls.
Heelan might have had the win of the week across all classes last week. Going to Clear Lake, beating that team, the district champ in the toughest district in Class 3A. I'll be honest, I did not think that would happen. I was really shocked to see that score. So maybe that proves that wasn't quite the district of death, because we saw a lot of district of death teams fall out. I mean, maybe those teams were just kind of beating up on each other, and it's just so tough to read. But that district with Heelan and Sioux Center, those two teams are now playing for the Dome. So really interesting, and a huge shout out to the Crusaders for that big win, because that kind of fell under the carpet with all the games last week. 7 classes, it's really tough to keep track of everything. But that was a huge win, and I'll give credit to that. Moving over to my lock, I'm riding with the team of destiny. I'm going to call them in 3A. Creston. The Webster City matchup is a little scary with how Webster City plays. If they get up early, Webster City, it's tough to claw back against them, because they're going to control the clock with Cherry. They're going to need to be physical up front with that line. But I just like Creston's playmakers. I think they can score in a hurry. You've watched them. I've watched them. They're impressive. I think they're the number 1 team in Class 3A, hands down, at this point. Compared from what I've seen, Cale Turner, Brennan Hayes, and their role players on the outsides are just they're elite for Class 3A. So I'm going to ride with the Panthers to clinch up a spot in the Dome, and them in the Dome could be scary. That's like the best show on, you know what I mean? Get them in a neutral site, or in a non-cold site, like a controlled environment, and they could put up a ton of points. That's gonna be a ton of fun if that works out. My upset pick, I'm going against you. I'm going with West Delaware. I'm upset that we've overlooked them for so long. Just way out east, it's hard to get a read on those teams sometimes with us, in Central Iowa. But Brett Yankovic is a star. I mean, he's the do-it-all man. They've got the sophomore rolling, running the ball well. But Yankovic, 1,400 rushing yards, 1,100 passing yards, 32 touchdowns on the year. He's a stud. He went off last week. He had 7 total touchdowns against Assumption. He was just unstoppable. And we always like talking about teams to kind of avenge losses, and we always like talking about picking stars in these games. And I think Yankovic might be the best player on that field, him and Brett White. So that one's going to be a ton of fun, and I'm going to ride the hot hand in West Delaware in Class 3A.
All right. Yeah, I agree with you there. I like your picks, and I agree with you about Creston. The game that I went to watch, it was cold, rainy, and many people complaining about the weather. And they still
put up 42.
They still put up a huge number against a great Nevada team. So it'll be exciting to watch them. Hopefully they can make it to the Dome. So we'll move on to Class 2A. My first pick on here, my lock this week, a really close game. I think a pretty evenly matched game. I'm taking West Lyon to beat Spirit Lake. West Lyon, I've been, really impressed with this team. Their one loss this year is a 7-0 loss to the number 1 team, Central Lyon, George Little Rock. I think that's really impressive. Central Lyon has been a fantastic team this year, and I think West Lyon, I think they've got the players, they've got the depth. Spirit Lake, they've had a fantastic season as well. Who they took on last week to get here. They beat New Hampton 48-6. Looking at Spirit Lake's last 5 games, it hasn't been incredibly strong opponents, but nonetheless, they've had a great season. But give me West Lyon to pull out a victory here. And we'll go over to my upset this week. I do want to make a mention. I picked against Minneapolis last week, and
you're doing it again.
They were not happy with me. I saw some comments about it, but I'm doing it again.
We read them, guys. We read
them. I promise we read them. But Preston Reese, he is fantastic. He is one of the greatest athletes in the state this season. Nearly 2,000 passing yards and 1,500 rushing yards.
Yeah, that's
he
insane.
is ridiculous. These numbers are insane. I haven't checked, but I believe he is not committed. I don't think that he is.
I'm not sure. That's a good question.
I'm not. I haven't really checked up on that, but he is a star, and I expect him to do just that in this game. I think he'll take control. I also just noticed that he has 81 tackles, 4 sacks, and a fumble recovery.
He's just a stat machine.
He is ridiculous, and I think he's going to keep that going in this game. Give me Monticello to take them, continue their season another week in the Dome.
I like it. Transitioning to my lock, I think we got a clear top 4 in 2A this year we've seen, and it's kind of how it's separating. Obviously, West Lyon having to go on the road as the number 4 team against Spirit Lake. That's really the 4-5 matchup that's super close. But I'm going to ride with the kind of the unanimous number 2 team right now, Van Meter. I like PCM. Adrian Robbins has had an incredible year. He's a guy we haven't talked about hardly at all. He's 12 yards away from having 2,000 rushing yards this season. 2,000 rushing yards is not an easy thing to do. And he, in all likelihood, looks like he's going to do it. He's 22 yards away, not 12, sorry. But he's had an incredible year. But it's just a good team running into a great team, I think. And Van Meter with Austin Baumover and Ben Gordon, again, another guy who's within an arm's reach of 2,000 yards. He's at 1,800 right now, so a big game from him, and he could eclipse that. But we talked 2A all year. It's looking like a crash course to Van Meter, Central Lyon, Georgia Little Rock. I think Van Meter punches their ticket again, and they're going to look to go back-to-back. Moving to my upset, I'm actually taking West Lyon, who was your lock. I only did it because they're on the road.
Right.
So it's a really even game, 4 versus 5, I believe, in our rankings. West Lyon, like you said, the one loss to the number 1 team. I'm going to ride with them. I think they've had an incredible year. I think it's worth pointing out, Nick, that neither of us touched the number 1 team in Class 2A because they've got kind of a scary matchup and a tough read against a really, really hot Kemper Catholic team.
Yeah.
When I saw we both didn't pick them, I knew I wasn't going to take them because Kemper's playing really well. Central Lyon, Georgia Little Rock, obviously the number 1 team that they are. That's going to be an intriguing matchup. Again, we didn't pick them, but that one's going to be a ton of fun. I'm going to be glued to that final score to see how that one turns out. Nick, what does 1A look like for you?
Yeah, so this is another game we just talked about. I had a lot of upset Dyke New Hartford fans also from last week. I'm sorry, guys. I'm doing my best to pick these games, but they're not going to be happy again. I'm picking Grundy Center to win this one. Maybe Grundy Center fans are mad at me now because the pick last time didn't work. But Grundy Center, I went and watched them a long time ago. This was one of the first few weeks of the season, but I just thought they looked like a well-rounded team. I think overall they have a great team. Colin Gordon, he's got, he has 2,000 total yards on the year, 1,400 through the air, and 25 total touchdowns. He has been really good this season. We don't really talk about him too much, and honestly, we haven't really talked a whole lot about Grundy Center. I mean, they've just kind of been consistent. They just win after win every week in, week out. Doesn't matter how highly ranked they are or how low, whatever. They just come in and they take care of business, and I think they'll do the same thing this week. My underdog this week, I've got Regina Catholic upsetting MFL Marmac.
Team can score.
Both of these teams looks like they have one historic matchup. It was a few years ago, 21-0 MFL Marmac. But this is the playoffs. Anything can happen. Marmac has had a great year. They're coming off of some really good-looking wins. They beat West Branch last week in the first round of the playoffs. Second round, sorry, yeah. And they beat Dyke New Hartford a few weeks ago, 34-14, which is looking like a better and better win every week. But give me Regina Catholic. They took their one loss of the year to West Branch not too long ago, but I think that Regina has a great team. They are, another one of those teams. They're great year in and year out, and I think they're going to find themselves back in the Dome again this year.
Yeah, I like it. I almost took Regina, but MFL Marmac is a tough team to pick against with Wyatt Powell and company. They can run the ball. I will say before I get into my picks, I did look. Preston is an Iowa commit. I don't know how we missed that.
Yeah, I didn't.
Obviously, yeah, we should have known that, but we do. I kind of figured. I just didn't want to say it and then be totally wrong. So now we can confirm. So the total yards leader, the record setter is an Iowa Hawkeye. We can confirm. But moving on to our lock, my lock anyway. Underwood at OABCIG, another road team heading. Having hit the road. Or another number one team hitting the road. Sorry, riding with my buy or sell thing about the number one teams winning away from home. I'm riding the Eagles. Louette is a star. He's a name you need to know in Class 1A for high school football. Just a sophomore, 1,900 passing yards, 25 touchdowns, and just 6 picks. They got a running back in Maddox Nelson who's a stud, and his number one target Mason Boothby has 12 of Louette's 25 touchdowns. So that team can score. They've got dudes all around. Obviously following them from baseball, a lot of names, a lot of familiar names from baseball season. So I'm going to take Underwood, the number one team, to win on the road at OABCIG. Heading to my upset, though, I'm going against you, Nick. Dyke New Hartford, I'm going to take them. And the simple reason is familiarity. Week 1, we talked about it a lot earlier in the season. Dyke New Hartford almost pulled out the stunner. 7-6 was the loss. And again, just beating a good team twice is nearly difficult or really difficult. Dyke New Hartford, one of the better defenses in Class 1A. They're holding really, really good teams to season lows. And I don't know, this is just more of a gut feeling here. I like Dyke New Hartford, and they've kind of been there, done that at the Dome. So is Grundy Center. But I'm gonna take the Wolverines to pull an upset.
Yeah, I like it. I like the upset pick there. We'll see how that turns out.
I'm going against you three times, Nick.
I know. Well, and I think
we got minimal games.
Yeah, there's not a lot to work with. We're doing our best, and I think it's going to be even harder next week. We might have to figure something out with that. But we'll move on to Class A. I'm taking St. Ansgar to beat East Buchanan. Now, I'm a little hesitant to make this pick because East Buchanan
had a huge win last week.
Wow.
Yeah.
Was not expecting that Lisbon win, let alone beating them by 31 points.
Yeah, that was out of nowhere.
That was huge. And they've been a good team this year.
Yeah.
Just, I feel like it's another one of those teams that they don't get those eye-popping, top 3, top 5 wins, so they kind of get overlooked.
Yep. They had a few early season losses.
Right.
Kind of slipped in the ranks. Tough to climb in a class where there's a lot of undefeated teams still left. So, no, I agree with you.
Oh, yeah. And I think, it was a huge accomplishment for them. And it's hard because, after a win like that, your momentum and your confidence is through the roof. But St. Ansgar, another one of those teams that has been just consistent all season long. I think they're going to take care of business again. I think they're going to win it against the Buccaneers. And this next one is another interesting game of Madrid going on the road to ACGC. Preston Wicker, we've talked about him before. More of a running back than a quarterback. He is significantly more than double the rushing yards compared to his passing yards, which is pretty interesting. ACG, both of these teams, this is another one of those games that you wish you could see at the Dome.
Yeah. 2 undefeated teams.
Right, both
Someone's
undefeated
got to take their
teams.
first loss.
Yeah, that's exactly right. And, what a better time to get your first loss than to be eliminated from contention. But I'm taking Madrid in this one. I've been really impressed with them all year long. I liked earlier in the year the other polls had them low in the rankings, and we had them higher, and they ended up getting a big win. I think it was over Linville. That's right, Linville Sully. And I think that they've just been a really great team. I think that they've caught a really special season here And I think that they find themselves in the Dome with a huge win over ACGC.
And you picked yet another number 1 team on the road. So call it an upset if you want. We're taking them as an upset because they're on the road. That's
taking advantage.
Yeah, that's
of the road.
of the system.
Yeah.
Yep. I like it though. Madrid has just had an incredible year, and Wicker is the leading rusher among quarterbacks in Class A. So he's had a great year. We talked about him a ton. Another team we've talked about a lot, Woodbury Central. They are my lock. I picked them last week. Squeaked by MMCRU in controversial fashion. This week, I think they get it done a little bit more convincingly. They've got a really fun offense to watch. I've seen them at the Dome multiple times from my years past with Drew Clunder, Eric McGill, Zach Butler. Those are the 3 big names where they've got the role players alongside them. I think they get it done against Logan Magnolia, who's really going to keep the ball on the ground. So if Woodbury Central can get up early like they did earlier in the regular season on them, I think that's their recipe for success. Moving on to my upset. Again, I'm utilizing the road game. West Hancock at Wapsie Valley. Wapsie Valley has had an incredible year. They might be the best defense in Class A. I don't think they've allowed double-digit points to a Class A opponent all year. So they've had an incredible season. West Hancock, just a different animal. That team is just so physical up front. They're not going to throw the ball unless they have to, but they can throw the ball if they need to. And they just got that tradition of been there, done that, which I like to back. So I'm going to go with the Eagles in an upset. We'll put an asterisk by it like we did for most of these. Moving on to our final class, though, Nick, what do you got for 8-man?
Yeah, so I'll start with my lock this week. I've bet on Cam Buffington all season long, and I'm going to do it again here. He has been sensational yet again. What a career he has had. I think he gets it done against Don Bosco, who's been, another great successful season. They beat Waco last week, which I think I picked Waco to win that game. So picking against Don Bosco again. We'll see how it works. Don Bosco, another one, we just talked about that, another one of those teams that has been there and done that. They have that dome, the dome experience. And, they've had a great year, but we've talked about this all year, how the Stars can really take control of this game, how these fantastic athletes, these proven players, can really take care of business. I think that Winfield Mount Union, I think that they're going to get a big win here. I can't remember if I don't think they made the Dome last year.
I don't believe so.
So I think that they get it done this year. I think they make it to the Dome this year. And this one, the next one, my underdog pick, I think this is a very interesting and kind of overlooked game of Gladbrook Rhinebeck on the road against Clarksville, who was their single loss this year. Was Clarksville, a 2-point victory for them. But as we mentioned, it is really hard to beat great teams twice. And I think that Gladbrook Rhinebeck flips the script this time. Isaac Clark has been one of the best quarterbacks in 8-man. He's got 2,000 yards and 40 touchdowns total on the year. So give me Gladbrook Rhinebeck. Again, another one of those games. Record-wise, Clarksville, and, of course, having home field advantage. But I think Gladbrook Rhinebeck, I think that they've got my favorite pick this week.
Yeah, I think it's the first time we've both had the same upset pick.
Yeah.
I will talk about Clarksville, though. They've had an incredible year. I think they're the only team in the entire state with 11 wins because they played a week 0 game. So they're able to get a win before anyone else. I believe they're the only team that's 11-0. But no, they've had a great year. 2 1,300-yard rushers in Becker and Bloker. They've had an incredible year. Like I said, they're going to keep the ball on the ground. That game was really back and forth. And again, I'm sticking with you here, and I'm going to go with Gladbrook Rhinebeck on the road as an underdog with you. Moving on to my lock, I'm going to take Cam. They're also on the road, another really high, like a higher ranked team on the road, I should say. I think that one came down to tiebreaker again, if I believe so. They're at Bishop Garrigan. Obviously, Garrigan coming off a nice win over Remsen St. Mary's, but with Speaker and Cam, they just squeaked by last week. I think they come out and they make a statement this week heading to the Dome, where they won a state title just a few short seasons ago. So, Nick, that was 7 classes of locks and dogs. Had a lot of good stuff there, a lot of picks. We'll see how the Instagram comments treat you this week, or treat both of us, in all honesty. One bad week and everyone's on you, and you're a meme all of a sudden.
But, yeah, we don't mind. We like the interaction. We like to see what you guys think. So I don't mind it.
It tells us you're watching. Again, we appreciate you guys for watching. The views on these videos have gone up every week. Obviously, you guys are tuning in We might have some 8-man fans on the road listening to us because they play tonight. So
Yeah.
good luck to all the 8-man quarterfinal teams tonight playing. Good luck to all the other schools playing tomorrow night. Really special time in the state of Iowa. And again, we're going to have your coverage on IA football. Follow us on all socials. Share this with a friend. Drop a comment. Let us know what you agree with, disagree with. We love reading them. And we'll catch you guys next week for some Dome previews.